RJRGLEANER Group Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Christopher Barnes, is the new president of the Inter-American Press Association. He joins the Gleaner for 5 questions. You assumed presidency of IAPA in October. That's correct. Can you tell us what are your top 3 priorities as IAPA president?
Let me explain that the IAPA presidency is usually a 1-year stint. Okay, so most IAPA presidents come and continue the good work of the organization, which is underpinned by the work of the executive director. But in terms of the top 3 things that we're looking at, clearly influence and raising the profile for the Caribbean region, press freedom in the Caribbean region is one of them. Sustainability of the organization. IAPA is an important body of lobbying for press freedom in this hemisphere. It is important that we find ways to be sustainable. And then thirdly, that sustainability translates to our members. Our members are going through difficult periods of transition where technology has disrupted their operating models, and they're having a challenge to earn the revenue that they've been earning before. So what IAPA has to do for its membership is introduce into its programs ways and examples of companies across the world that are doing well, with the hope that they can adopt those business models, learn from them, and find a path to sustainability in this changing environment.
Why should press freedom be a national, regional, and global priority?
We are an important pillar for democracy, okay? We are the ones that have to ask the tough questions on behalf of the people. Where you have governments and you have political parties, they obviously have their mandates and their agendas to basically gain power, right? To assume the control of the country. If we don't have the questions and the transparency, right, then they have free rein to do what it is that they want to do. Sometimes it is to the detriment of the country and its people. So if you don't have someone representing on behalf of the people, then you really have no democracy, and that's the important role that we play.
What would you say is the greatest threat to journalism and to the press in Jamaica?
Ooh, that's a difficult question. I mean, you can look at it in quite a few ways, right? I think the biggest threat to media in Jamaica is one that is global, which is technology, right? Social media, technology advancements has introduced a threat to our very business models. And as you know, that it takes cash to care, it takes revenue to pay journalists. And as more and more companies struggle with it, it threatens the quality and the amount of journalism that you can have. So I think that companies in Jamaica, while our performance lags what we see overseas, we are susceptible to the same technology changes that will threaten our business models. And I think that is the biggest challenge. What we are also seeing as a threat too is we're seeing leaders in some developed countries who are basically rallying their base through other means, against media. And unfortunately, what some of these people don't know is that they are being rallied against the very institutions that are trying to protect their rights and trying to bring transparency to what happens in the public space. We don't hold ourselves to be high and mighty and infallible, but you get to a position where social media can dampen the value of the work that traditional media does. We vigorously demand that journalists be treated fairly. Journalists are not threatened. Journalists are not locked up. Journalists are not killed. There are so many journalists. I think in Mexico now, so far, we're at 8 journalists killed, or maybe even more that haven't been reported. Every time something like that happens, IAPA comes out strong. You know, if you look in the Caribbean, I mean, Haiti, right next door to us, there have been a couple of journalists killed there as well. Just recently in Trinidad, the Trinidad Express has had an editor and a couple of reporters allegedly threatened by the police commissioner. That's a bad sign. That's bad business for the region. And one of the things that I try to tell people about press freedom, because a lot of the times we get criticized for making a mountain out of a molehill, is that right? Is that at the first sight of press freedom being impinged upon, we have to stamp it out firmly. And you're seeing cases in Jamaica too, where you have exemption periods for access to information being moved or suggested to be moved from 20 to 70 years. I mean, what are we trying to hide? That's a retrograde step, right? We need to stamp it down. When you see an updating of laws or fines related to laws, which results in a previously inconsequential fine being raised to $1 million for what is really an outdated law of still photography on court premises. That's the kind of thing, however unintended, you need to stamp out, you need to make noise about. When you have a prime minister, a leader of a country, that goes onto a platform and starts to speak about, don't trust the media, come and watch what I am doing, that sort of blanket, broad brush approach to criticizing traditional media is something that some people might say, oh, he was just on a political platform, nobody reads anything into it. That's the kind of thing you need to call out and say, we need to be responsible about what we're doing with this important pillar of your democracy. That Jamaica is where it is in the press freedom rankings is a function of the hard work that we've put into journalism and the traditional support that leaders of the country, both opposition and government leaders, has had for journalism, a respect for journalism. We don't always agree, right? We don't always get it right, either side, yeah? But that ability to dialogue and have that certain amount of respect, and where there are differences, work them out, is one of the fundamental reasons why we are where we are.
How should we measure your success as IAPA president over the next year?
You want to be able to look back after a year and see the kind of prominence that Caribbean issues have on the agenda, if you will, the communication agenda of IAPA. Measured by the amount of press releases speaking to issues that our region faces. I think that is the most readily available measure or measurement that you can follow. Sustainability, how do you define success at sustainability? Only time will tell, yeah? But what I think another way to measure it is the relevance of the programs that we introduce, both through our general assemblies, mid-year assemblies, which are conferences, as well as what happens in the ensuing period. So if you see a greater injection of game-changing, if you will, technologies or business ideas being fed into the IAPA programs, then I think you could say that we've had some success.
IAPA represents newspapers, it's comprised of 1,300 newspapers across the region. Print, radio, TV, or internet, what is your bias?
In my capacity as IAPA president, right, I have to clarify one thing. IAPA has its foundations from 1926 with the print media, but now we allow all media to register to be a member of IAPA because press freedom is just not specific to print. As far as me personally, I'm not a journalist, right? So I joined my organization 12 years ago as an engineer with a finance degree, right? So my first exposure is really in print. So I've had a bias, yeah? What was exciting to me about the RJRGLEANER merger was that we were getting into the television business. And I mean, if you thought print was exciting in terms of, the mechanics of how a publication is built, when you get into a studio and you look at the camera work and the editing work and the timing and punctuality, the quality of the image, all of that. It's very interesting, right? So over time, it's been, what, 3 years now that, you know, my interest has shifted. So I can't really say that I have a bias, you know. It was said that radio would die with the introduction of television, and that's not happening. So radio, television, and print will be around for the foreseeable future for a long time.